How do you improve someone's life with what you build? A lot of people miss that it is not about the process from my point of view. It is about the outcome that we want to achieve, and how you got there is secondary. Act, understand, and explore. And this is basically true for all consumer-facing interactions. If you design to meet these patterns, like how people behave, then you basically build successful interactions over and over and over again.
There is this almost inherent disconnect between what designers think of what design is and what other roles and disciplines perceive design as.
The user does not want to digest what you want from them. They just are on autopilot. You hide something just to let the user look for it. And this is not what I think what is worth to do. It would be a dream, yeah, to say, okay, hey, whatever we imagined is becoming reality. But this is not how it works.
If you help clients to develop features for AI, how do you think about capabilities that exist today versus where they will be in a year or year and a half, right?
Change the narrative from, okay, how it looks to why it works this way.
You're the co-founder of DUMBO agency. You have a partner as well, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so you guys started, from what I understand, like 14 years ago in Germany.
I actually started as a freelancer. Then we founded a startup together. And then we went freelancing again. And then finally came back 2017 to co-found DUMBO.
And is your partner a designer as well?
Yes.
What motivated you guys like to start the agency? Was it kind of like an organic thing that just happened just because you were working on the project as freelancers, or did you have a plan in mind? Like what led you to beginning and opening the doors of DUMBO?
Yeah. So we never planned to have an agency, to be honest. So we always were like creating and building. Back in the days when we were studying, we did a lot of stuff, digital stuff, movies, short movies, a lot of these things. But we never planned to found an agency, like not another agency. But when we were working for a couple of years, we noticed that we haven't found a place where we thought, okay, this is worth to stay. This is worth to commit or to be part of the party there. And the reason why was because there wasn't a shared mindset, you know. I remember the time when I was in a big agency and I was basically working on a strategic project, and I was talking down the hamburger button. Back these days, it was a big thing. We wanted to make everything mobile optimized, stuff like this. And I was talking it down. And at the same time, in the room next to me, there was a guy hyping the hamburger button. This is the ultimate solution, you know. The only difference was there were two freelancers doing the same stuff in two different rooms with different opinions. And when I noticed this and thought about this, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so painful. This hurts so much. You know, you're there, you have an agency, you're running, you stand for something, but you have no idea what's going on in front of the customer, and preaching the one thing in this room and the other thing in this room, and both are the truth. And this couldn't be the thing. And this led us to come together to say, okay, hey, you know what? Not only we wanted to work again together, like on the same thing, but also wanted to bring people and surround us with people, bring people on board that have the same mindset. They share the same idea of what makes a great product and what didn't. And this is when we thought, okay, you know what? After learning for a couple of years how to not do a business, we finally started to then like really double down on our agency on that.
What was it about the hamburger button that didn't align with you?
What was it? You know,
The name, the way it's called.
I love hamburgers, to be honest. but yeah, I mean, this is the wrong place to put it. I mean, the most obvious thing, I guess, for me is that you hide information behind an icon that people do not know that they exist. And the only thing that you wait for is people making the guess that there might be something worth to explore and to look for. And this is really not the thing, how it should be, like how we play with like intuition and user behavior in the digital realm, right? So, and this is where I thought, I mean, back these days, Spotify, I guess, was it, published a big survey when they were like switching from a hamburger button to the bottom tab bar on iOS or so. And they noticed an increase in feature adoption across the board. And this is like what I meant with you hide something just to let the user look for it. And this is not what I think what is worth to do, even if we have the challenge in front of us to get all these informations stripped down and broken down into a mobile-friendly UI. But yeah, we need.
Did your opinion change over years, like as the type of menu became more widely acceptable, or are you still looking like for ways to, not utilize that particular interaction?
Yes, still hold true to this belief that it is not a good idea. People have this hamburger button is something we use and we also place on our interfaces, right? So it's all good. But whenever I have the chance, I try to go for an open navigation. I mean, people, when back these days, you built so many interfaces for so many different clients and use cases and things, and we noticed a couple of patterns. And the one pattern that was really game-changing for us was that basically there are only 3 websites out there for consumer, for example. 3 types of interaction you can build for. And this all goes back to the information-seeking behavior of people, basically like behavioral psychology. And it was 19 whatsoever where Xerox, the printer company, already did this study. And then like at some point, Nielsen Norman also confirmed it again 20 years later or so, I guess, that there are only basically, in a few edge cases, 3 types of information-seeking behaviors. And we cluster them in act, understand, and explore. And this means that if people interact with digital goods in any way, mostly the patterns they follow when they follow an intention of solution-oriented actions, like they want to find something, they have a specific goal in mind, then they interact in the same way over and over again. Doesn't matter in which situation they are. And this is different to when people seek for information, when they need to compare stuff and when they like try to get an understanding and to get an opinion on something. Totally different game. Different than when they explore something, when they do not know where they are going, and when they just follow their intuition, follow the nudges that they get to figure out what are they after and what might be from interest. And basically, you can build the entire web around these 3 intentions of use. And this is what we then also did back these days and called them interaction archetypes. Yeah, these things tell you how to structure content.
What are the 3 interaction archetypes, or like what are those 3 patterns?
It is act, understand, and explore. And this is basically true for all consumer-facing interactions. So if you follow or if you design to meet these patterns, like how people behave, then you basically build successful interactions over and over and over again. And the interesting part was that we were basically designing for 2 airlines back these days. Before we founded DUMBO, was Air Berlin and it was Lufthansa, 2 biggest brands in Germany back these days. And we noticed the same thing happening during the booking flow on both airlines. And when we were like optimizing for this, we came to the same conclusions. For example, because when people behave in an action or result-oriented manner, you just chunk down the task that they need to fulfill along the way into little tiny snippets they can really recognize and directly answer. And the result of these interfaces are always like that they are focused to the core content. So there is only as much content as you need to fulfill the task, to perform the task and get to the next success, not more. Yeah? And of course, not less. And a few tiny things in between. And when you strip down anything, and maybe you also increase the steps someone needs to take to get from A to B, you see the same pattern occurring over and over again. So people, the time on task to book a flight, for example, we could double. So just like, double? No, that's wrong. Like half of the time it takes to book a flight, just by optimizing for this intention of use, to act in a result-oriented manner.
I was going through your website, which is one of the reasons that we've met, because what stood out to me is just this like great attention to detail. Like on the surface, maybe to someone like they wouldn't almost call it out, but as someone who's been building websites and products, like I just saw time that you guys dedicated to creating those pages about the services and things like that. And when I was going through the site again, I noticed something that stood out to me, and I'm curious, like if it was intentional. I mean, I'm guessing yes. Like you don't have a typical work section or like portfolio
Yeah,
section. Like,
yeah,
was it intentional, or is it because maybe there was no time to build one out, like which could also be a reason?
yeah. So I mean, I
But
think
you
it
do
was
have
an
the use cases, right? Sorry,
yeah, we
you
do.
do have the case studies. It's just that they're kind of baked into the pages themselves, and you discover them. So yeah, just maybe share a little bit of what was behind that.
Yeah, I mean, it all started out at the time where we had no case studies, so no in-depth case studies. And you're right, each and every agency has a menu item called work. And we also thought, okay, this is not what we are going after. So this is not the story we want to tell. We do not create case studies for you. We do not create like beautiful designs. We wanted to tell the story from a more outcome oriented way. So I wouldn't say that we are there yet. I would say we can do much better. But still today, I think I like it that we do not have a like collection of case studies, rather use the case studies to support a saying or a promise, as the natural extension of the content. So if I state something, I give you proof that we are able to do so. If you want to dig deeper into this, there we go. But on the other side, we have an insights section, for example. And depending on the people I talk to, they read through all the insights. It's crazy, through the articles, through the case studies, and they remember the nitty-gritty details that we laid out there. And when we were like building these case studies, we were structuring them like around the outcome we were aiming for. Yeah, and we delivered on. I mean, this is also a big difference. So a lot of people miss that it is not about the process from my point of view. It is about the outcome that we want to achieve, and how you got there is secondary. It's not so important. But yeah, but people read through this and see this, and you as well. But also people are arguing with us over and over again that this is too much detail. And you might know from a design and agency perspective, like we face a lot of confidential issues, and people are not feeling comfortable in talking about the reasons why. But the reasons why are the things we need to talk about, and not the what is the result. Like what led us to the result is the interesting story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that that's this big issue and challenge for probably a lot of agencies or even freelancers, is figuring out how to build your own site. It's always like the hardest thing to do. It's much simpler kind of to go of whatever the client task is, but then when it comes to building something for your own, for whatever reason, it's just a much more difficult task. But also then there is that issue of like, yeah, NDAs, and some projects or clients you can't even talk about. So kind of how do you navigate the thing that where on one hand you need to show capabilities, on the other hand, well, first of all, it takes a lot of time to also build those case studies, and then sometimes maybe something didn't go quite as what you have hoped for, and then what do you do there? So I think it's an interesting, good trick to think about it, like and I've been seeing that sometimes as well, like focusing on the services, focusing on the outcomes, and then, having more of those like maybe private conversations when there's interest to dive in deeper. Going back, I'm curious to what we talked about earlier, back to the hamburger. Like you mentioned that there is this particular challenge where, let's say, you do have a product or a website with a lot of features, with a lot of pages. So discoverability can be tricky, right? And you can't just put a kitchen sink full of everything, on one page. So how do you go about figuring out how to structure the data to, on one hand, like avoid those kind of hidden places with big menus, but on the other hand, to make it easier to discover? Like, I mean, it's a big question, I know, like, and it probably depends on the context of a specific thing, but like, what is the thought process there of how do you figure out like what's important, what to start with, how to
Yeah.
break things down?
Yeah. I mean, I think to answer this, I want to bring this up a bit, like from a website and from an information architectural point of view, to why we build this in the first place. And if we got this right, then we can also lay out like the path toward the goal. Because in the end, all of this goes back to basically the job to be done that we need to fulfill, that the product gets hired for. If this is a website or an app or whatsoever interaction digital good that we deal with, then this is basically getting used to get us closer to the user, goes closer to a goal. And I believe that there's so much power in the job to be done theory, also for the designers, but because this is coming from product point of view. But this theory is basically saying that you hire a product just to get a job done. And if you do it good, then the user is hiring the product again, means they are using it again to do the same stuff again. And if not, they are just firing it and looking for something else. And this is why this is important, is because it is not just a use case we talk about. It is basically telling the story of making progress, of bringing me from where I am today to where I aspire to be. And if we look into Netflix, for example, what Netflix is doing, then I think publicly you can quote them that they are designing and building for the job to be done of helping me to relax, for example. Mm-hmm. And I think this is quite interesting. If you have this in mind, then Netflix was never a DVD company. Netflix was never just an on-demand video streamer. Netflix is competing with a lot of offerings we have at our hand every day, every night to relax. Could be a bottle of wine, a board game, whatsoever, right? So, but if you know that I'm looking for something to relax, then you can use this as the final goal and then try to bring me from every context that I can tune in closer toward this goal. And you can design for this and you can structure the entire content around this and build interactions that serve like each and every moment of interaction in the intention of getting me closer to the ultimate relaxation, so to say. And this is what we use to build out an interaction map that is then used as an orientation to really strategize on the moment of interaction and how we want to design it, all like really with the mind of helping people to progress to something, and not from a like content perspective. The content comes later once we have the strategy and we know toward which outcome we want to go. Does it make sense?
Yeah. And you're hitting on something that I wanted to talk next about strategy. And I know that in our prior conversation, you mentioned that you're kind of transitioning DUMBO to become kind of strategy first agency, if I get it correctly, right? Like, so it's not just about a traditional UI UX or traditional product design or whatever. What prompted you to start moving that direction, and what does it look like?
Yeah. I think Felix and I, we are really strategic thinkers. Thinking and interacting in a really strategic way was not the thing that we thought about when we were looking on what we do. We thought we just do UX design. This is where we came from. Building great UX, great design, messing up with a lot of these like terms that are floating around there, product designer, whatsoever, until a point where we thought that what we do couldn't have the impact that it was supposed to have. And the reason why is because the people that hire us to do the UI UX work and stuff mostly were not the people who had the mandate or the power to also challenge the strategy within the organization. So we work not for startups. Mostly we work for, we call them industry leaders, mostly big enterprises or scale-ups. And their hierarchy and their like organizational structure is making it really hard for the operational level to challenge the assumption that were made in the first place. And this was always the point where we thought, oh my gosh, if we need to increase the impact that we want to make, then we need to have more leverage on the strategy. Mm-hmm. And this was then pushing us more and more into this direction. But we always were acting in that way. That was not always fun, because it's also hard to work against windmills,
Windmills, yeah, for sure. So something that, and I'm sure you've probably noticed it number of times, something that is one of my pet peeves is when I talk with either a potential client or anyone really, people from product or engineers, doesn't matter. They think of design as the visual layer, as the surface layer of aesthetics. Now, if you talk to most designers, this is not how they describe what design is, right? We like to talk about things that design is imagining the potential future or things like that, So it's there is this almost inherent disconnect between what designers think of what design is and what other roles and disciplines perceive design as. And so I imagine that when maybe clients come to you initially, they may be thinking about that they just need something to look better. We just need something, better looking interfaces, easier to use, more intuitive, sure. But they're thinking about it in this surface level aesthetic stuff. Is this something that you've encountered? And if yes, how do you go about sort of changing that perspective and the expectation of what the client comes for, and eventually getting them to the point of explaining, look guys, let's talk about strategy, let's talk about what we're actually doing here.
Yeah, this is true. This is common sense, I would say. Common sense is that design is making something beautiful, that is the layer that comes on top after everything is well defined, but on the same time it's not equally on all the organizations we work for. So it's totally different on the maturity, on the design maturity of a company, of an enterprise. And there are a few that say, hey, you know what? Design has already a seat at the table, where design has a lot of saying, a big mandate. And this is a totally different game than if you are in a company where the maturity is really low and design is just one discipline to deliver in the execution phase. So it's super different depending on the environment in which you work. But what I think what is important is, when it comes to this situation, I think it's not the right way to advocate for design in terms of being the ultimate power or being a strategic asset you can have. It's more like demonstrating how design, or how you as an agency can help the people out there making better decisions, and change the narrative from, okay, how it looks, to why it works this way. So, and this is what we always try to do. So it's not about negotiating or changing the perspective. It's more about taking the lead on a project or for a discipline and guiding the client through the decision-making process along the way. So an example, we talked about these interaction archetypes, for example. And as you said, a lot of times everything is set in stone, and then they ask for design to just say, okay, let's design this app, let's design these websites, let's make sure that we can run this campaign properly, or whatsoever the question is. And then for us, it is always important to say, okay, first we need to come up with we call it interaction blueprint. So where we say, okay, this is a context, the moment of interaction we deal with, and then we lay out the strategy for each and every moment of interaction. So to enable the client to talk about things they are used to talk about, like goal setting, like prioritization of things, phrasing of things. And when we run this exercise with them and we help to define the strategy for each and every interaction, what happens naturally is that we not only get a buy-in from these stakeholders, but they get part of the of shaping the creation, and they create ownership that they can then execute on and better articulate. Once this happens, like the design, the beauty of making things look good or work pleasant is a natural extension of what we have already planned. This is like mostly it's not about the design discourse at all, like how it looks. It's more like why it looks that way in the first place. And this is all like going back to better decision making and informing the decisions in a way that empower the people to not only understand but articulate, and then also like validate or preach within the organization.
When a client comes in, do you have like a pretty standardized process, maybe with, I don't know, templates and checks and points that you sort of run every client through? Or do you adapt to any particular and specific scenario? Like, kind of how much do you rely on some things that are set in stone and sort of like move from one project to another, as opposed to sort of starting from a blank slate for every project?
Yeah, it's mostly like we jump in a project that is already running, and then you need to catch up, get the head of like development and the crowd and everyone pushing, and then shipping the thing somewhere like in the harbor, you know. But it's always different. That's why also the approach is always a bit different. So people always like look for process, a specific process, a workflow, stuff like this. And I think this is not how it works, and not these days, especially when it comes to AI. This is a different story. But what I think what is interesting is that we see, okay, what is the challenge ahead of us? Because like all these all the people out there, all these companies, they face different challenges, but in the end the problem is always the same, right? The challenge is unique, but the problem underneath is mostly the same. That's also why as an agency you can operate on different like industries.
What is the problem that is typically the same?
Yeah, for example, this is also a thing here. We work for a lot of commodity products. Yeah, so means energy, for example, telecommunication, insurance, all of this kind of things, and they have no physical good, but mostly they run on an app, and the moment of contact for them is throughout the app. And all of these companies, they are dreaming of a world in which their customers are interacting with them, where they have engagement with them. Because when they have engagement, they start to build up a relationship. If they have a relationship, they maybe get a better customer lifetime value out of it, or reduce a churn rate, or get one of the loved brands, you know, a lot of these great things. But, and then the challenge for them is, okay, how can I increase engagement? So I want to make my communication customers coming into my app once in a while. I want to have my insurance clients coming using my app as they would use their banking app. I want to, and so on. So, but the underlying problem of this is people give a shit. They don't want to interact with you. They have no personal investment into this, and they use your product as a commodity just to get access and to run their life. We use electricity that comes out of our plugs, right, to do whatever we want to do. We use telecommunication providers just to do whatever we want to do, that we have this podcast here. But I do not want to engage with them. And if I do not have to engage with them, the job to be done is amazing, fulfilled. So, and there we need to tackle these problems, and we are used to tackle them then, and then to see, okay, how can we overcome the specific challenges in these environments, even if the issue underneath is the same, right?
Yeah. How do you define, like, what is strategy?
Strategy is basically a plan of how we achieve a certain outcome. So we want to achieve an outcome, a business outcome or user outcome. From my perspective, it's much better when we talk about digital goods to first start with the user outcome. And the plan on how we achieve this, how we gain this outcome, means, from a job to be done perspective, how we help the customer to get closer to their goal, to their aspirational goal. This is the strategy, like the plan on how and on why we get where we want to get.
Plan on how we get to where we want to get.
Yeah.
Do you
Right.
typically work? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it is important to the reasoning behind this is important, right? That we have the right. If we use this, we build up hypothesis, and if we have hypothesis on why we are doing certain things, we can validate them or falsify them. And this is an advantage most companies don't have because they fall in love with their assumptions.
Yeah. So like you mentioned that you work a lot with kind of scale ups and larger enterprise companies who are already established. And usually those companies have a good amount of layers of bureaucracy and politics, and they have their own internal processes on how they run things, OKRs, quarterly planning, and things like that. When you start to engage, do you fit into their sort of ecosystem of those OKR goals, or do you, or how does it work typically? Like kind of, do you operate on the same plane as in-house teams and like kind of helping them to achieve what they've already established as the goals? Or do you sometimes like redefine them or maybe establish your own plane to move kind of in parallel? I'm just curious on like kind of this relationship between like how their internal ship is operating and how you guys fit into their process.
So mostly we are not a business consulting agency. So still we operate on product, on design, product strategy, design strategy. And what we do is we try to be as close as possible to their product teams. So we are not an agency that you book just to get shit done or to do certain things or to be a workbench that can just produce. We try to team up for a certain period of time to overcome a challenge, whatever this challenge is. So, and mostly, as you said, these teams operate by OKRs and they have objectives, and everything that we work on needs to get tied back to the objective that they have in place, because this is also the reason why they got the funding, the budget for the project. And next year they need to pitch again for the project. And hopefully the priorities for the business priorities are still the same. If this is changing, then maybe you do not have the project anymore, right? But, and this is an interesting thing, I guess, people or organizations are getting more and more aware of the fact that they need to tie back user outcomes, could also say UX outcomes or whatsoever, to the business objectives. And they need somehow to make this exchange of value. And this is what we help them to design. So how you can link a user outcome to a business outcome so that both parties succeed at the same time. If you can get this done, then you have a thriving product, right? Because you do not want to lose the funding for the project or for the product. And even if you build the best product for the user, if there's no funding anymore and there's no return of invest for the business, you will also lose this amazing experience in the end. Mm-hmm. So, and I think this is something where is a lot of value in really establishing ownership of an outcome within the organization. And we are not there yet. So a lot of companies that I observe and work with, they do not really have this. So there is no measurement. They measure like the objectives, the OKRs, and they measure also all the activities they are running in all their Scrum teams, but they do not really measure the outcome that they design for, how they really change the user's life. And this is not like how much conversion we have or how fast people are. I really talk about, do I make it to make people feel more safe? Or do I make it that people can commute much faster on everyday life? Or whatsoever the impact on the customer's life is, how can I measure this? And how can I design for this? And then how can I report this? Because this will ultimately lead, this is what I believe, to fulfilling the objective, the business outcome. And this is the loop that we need to design much more like cautiously, I would say, because if the value exchange is not working, then you do not really design the right thing,
Yeah. Do you ever run into issues with actual like measurements and like setting up the infrastructure to measure? Like, I don't know about your experience. In my experience, like, I mean, on one hand, everybody is on board with the fact that you need to measure, you need to have analytics, and data is very important. But when it comes to the actual like infrastructure to measure things, like oftentimes it's lacking, it's like even
Weak.
some of the most basic things are not there now. And then there is the challenge is that, especially as an outside agency, but even if you're inside, even if you're like a product manager inside an organization and you have the best intentions and you want to measure something, then you need to figure out with IT and security and legal, oh, can we measure this? Can we install this plugin or thing? And maybe there are companies that kind of have figured it out. But from what I've observed is more often than not, like a lot of data is not actually being captured. Like, have you experienced those things?
Yeah, indeed. Like it's exactly like you laid it out. So it's like people have a lot of data. Companies have a lot of data, but it's really not. Oftentimes, I think it's the wrong question that we ask to gather the data in the first place. We do not need all of this data. We just need to ask better question, and then we need to make much better conclusions out of the insight that we have there. And it is exactly like you said. I see that a lot of companies measure like the fundamentals. They have like the analytics running. They have journeys that they measure across, like where the bounce rate, the conversion rates. Like sometimes people measure like if people click a certain button, but this is not always the case. And then when we look into correlations, then most drop off. And yeah, this means like if you have a question, there oftentimes you get a set of data, but if you just like dig one step deeper into this, they already are not able to make a proper conclusion out of this because this doesn't hold through. And this is really, really weak. We have another startup we work with. They are so well prepared in gathering data and also in like interpreting data. And this is such a huge difference if you are able to like within seconds to really get what you're looking for, because you have a customer base that is significant. You have a data set that is significant. And then you just need to like connect the dots to see if your hypothesis is true or spot certain patterns. This is a game changer. But yeah, I would agree, it's hard to do this. But I also would argue you do not need all of this data at all.
Do you run like user research studies and things like that during engagements? Or how like also in my experience, nobody will ever disagree that getting data from people and doing user research is important. Like everybody will say that it is. But when it comes to actually doing that, the frequency of running those studies, the sample sizes, how rigorously they approach preparing of the study, lots of issues there. So do you nudge clients to conduct more of user research? Do you sort of take that as a service that you provide? Or maybe that's not the area where you guys operate?
Yeah, we are not a UX research agency, but do like nudge clients, but we also get nudged, to be honest, into user research from time to time. And we also cover a few of these things, but we only focus on the stuff that we need to make better decisions, that we need to empower our clients to make better bets on what to build next. This is where we focus on. So normally these days we do not do any usability test anymore. This normally gets executed by the client itself or their standard like processes out there, and then we just like build something, and then mostly the internal teams take this and push it into testing, and they love to have like a third party there that is neutral to the working environment, so that there's no bias, survivor bias or something, confirmation bias, right? So that there's no bias in there. And I really appreciate this, but I would agree. This is also, there are a lot of things that are not so good. So if I'm as a UX research agency, if my job is to spot like weaknesses and gains and like things that are like patterns that are showing anomalies or like any things to consider, then they just need to tell me so that I can then think, okay, how can I use this insight to get the job better done than before? But what they normally do is they have the feeling, or they get asked to provide like recommendations and consult the client on how to do it better and optimize it. And this is always like weak, because the agency does not have the knowledge that the product team has, and the recommendation they gave is like sand in the engine, so to say, for the design and product teams running the show, because now they have to argue against it, and then everything is like misaligned. So a lot of things that are broken there. But I think there's a bigger issue, and the bigger issue is that what I see is that a lot of people use user testing as an insurance. So they ensure that whatever they decide is backed by or approved by the crowd, by the user. And what people get afraid of or do less and less is taking the stand, the risk, doing the bet, making the hard call, the decision. And this is really concerning, because in the end, it is not the user's job to tell you what to build. It is your job to decide what to do next. And of course, you can test and research and challenge your assumption, but then in the end, it's on you. It's not like, sometimes it feels like over-insuring. And by doing so, you do not make a difference anymore. And then again, because what they do not get is what do they need to build in the first place? What do they need to make sure? What do they need to optimize for? This again is the outcome, the aspirational goal of the user, to get faster to you as I can today. So, and if I have an idea of how I can do this job today better than it is done, oh my gosh, great, go for it. Go for it. But this is what we don't have. And this is what we need to make research for. We need to uncover what the job is and what the opportunity is, to then say, okay, let's take this opportunity. Go for it. This is it. But people do not have this normally.
Yeah. Do you guys do implementation as well, or do you stop at basically finished designs?
That's where we stop. Typical thing is, what people ask us for is something that is aiming for a target picture on a 2 to 3 year horizon. And like, how could we do the job better than today on a 3-year horizon? Where do we heading towards? What is the unfair advantage? What is a unique selling proposition? Stuff like this.
Yeah.
How do we do it? And then what we help them to do is to break this down, to make the first step, like in the first sprint and the first increment. And then we help to execute on this and to measure the success, that we go into the right direction, that we empower the product teams to make progress. Yeah, this is normally what we...
Was it? Yeah, because that's something that, like I refer to this as like product North Stars, helping to develop, that North Star vision, and something I personally love to do as well. Has it kind of evolved over time as like one of the key services, or has it always been like that you've been kind of helping clients to imagine that like longer term, as opposed to just working on helping them to figure out the next sprint?
Yeah, honestly, it evolved over time into what we have now. So nowadays we build an entire accelerator around this, where you say, okay, in 90 days we create this North Star, this target picture for you, and help you to make the first step to go into execution. And the North Star for us is not like, this is the thing, like we do not want to build an ivory tower, neither a PowerPoint deck, a slide deck, neither an Excel sheet. We want to have something tangible where people say, okay, this is where we go. That's right. That's great. I got this. So I need to do this step today to get closer to the goal where we want to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this is like, if we don't do it, this is a lot of opportunity costs that people have there. And we call this, what you need there, experienced drivers, like the core essence of how you shape the experience of the product in the future. What makes or breaks it in the future? What is the core essence?
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing there, because you're operating at this like longer term timeline, basically, right? Like you're helping to envision something that where like the direction for where the product is headed over a longer time. It means that there is also a lot of unknowns after sort of that handoff happens, right? How happy do you feel about companies meeting the target that was kind of established? Like you guys worked very hard on it, they've all loved it and approved it, excited about it. Then time comes, like if you were to create a pie chart of like, or I don't know, whatever favorite visualization of sort of like, oh, like this client actually did an excellent job implementing and executing that vision, versus like everything went down the drain, or maybe like only one little nugget was carried through, like kind of what's that ratio?
You know, it would be a dream, yeah, to say, okay, hey, whatever we imagined is becoming reality, but this is not how it works. So it's like, and then at some point in your design career, you notice, oh, that's not how it works. You know, it's not like, oh, I have this idea. This is the great UI, the great experience, the product. Oh my gosh. And then finally we release it and this is there. It's like a back and forth and negotiating along the way, a decision making each and every single day that leads to a certain point, with all the requirements, with all the like constraints, with all the data, with the market dynamics. So if I would look on this, I wouldn't be happy, I guess. But on the other side, if you see, can we enable people to take action and to progress towards something and to build alignment and to create excitement and to make some change? Oh my gosh, I'm really, really excited about this. And I think this, what we build there is a target picture. This is not the to be state. This is just like the thing that makes you act, the thing that everyone can agree on, that you can, I'm not sure how to say in English, you know, that you can.
Friction?
Yeah,
Or
that you have the friction within the team that makes it something. Yeah, I mean, it's like if you this friction helps you to move. And currently, really, like, you know, most of the clients, they when they have a certain like scale or size, already apologize for their speed. You know, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know, if we work together, we are not so fast. Things are really slow here. You know, the decision making takes so long. Ooh. And there's already this, I apologize. You know, it reminds me of something in Germany. We are obsessed about cake. You know, I love cake, by the way, also. And every time in Germany, someone brings a cake and puts it on the table, and a lot of people, every time the same. I think it is not as good, you know. I'm so sorry for this. And maybe it's too sweet. And they are always apologizing in advance, you know. And it's the same. They get bigger, they get slower, they apologize. And at some point, you really have to be excited about like making progress and making some change. And the way you make the change on an individual level, on the thinking, on the team, on the organization, on the people out there that are using something or doing something better than yesterday. This depends, and this is always different.
So like, let's say a scenario, product North Star has been defined. Initial people working on that initiative have all been aligned. So then there is this entity, right? The deliverable that exists. And like, what would be the reasons why there would be a big deviation from the course, right? Like, what are the most common scenarios?
We had the situation with Air Berlin back these days where we said we envision a homepage where we just ask for where do you want to fly? Where do you want to go? And back these days, this entire homepage was full of ads. Like the biggest chunk in the header was like an advertising to rent a car from Sixt, for example. And there was this widget for the flight search, but this entire page was just like the core job was flying people from A to B. And we were arguing, okay, this is what it needs to look like. And then we got the pushback. You know what? we make so much money from this ad that Six is paying us. I do not know the exact number. It's not even fun to consider this, to get rid of this, you know? And then we were there, oh my gosh. And the question was again, okay, is our naive thinking that if we optimize for the task that user come from, that this results into a better business outcome? Is this naive or is it true? And we were then trying to convince them to at least run an A/B test to say, you know what, we hold against this. If we can prove that we make more money in selling flights than you do in earning like revenue from this ad, then you will change it. And a few weeks later, this ad was gone. They removed the ad. They paid for breaking these contracts before running out because they increased like the average basket value by 10 euros on average. And they got much more like first time bookings than before. We had no clue that this would work out, but we thought, okay, I got this constraint and this is worse to consider because this is a serious amount of money you make here. And let's take it to a test, you know, and let's prove us wrong. Happy that we could convince them, yeah. But this was one of the millions of pushbacks we got.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of good cake was eaten at the agency after the win. Let's talk about AI. A big topic. How do you see AI is impacting the day-to-day of product development? How it's changing your workflow and also the services that you provide?
I mean, there are a lot of different things happening simultaneously currently, and the amount of stuff that is happening every day. I mean, if you would do an AI podcast, you could feed like a new episode every single day just by the news and updates that all the big ones are producing there. So for us, it was like really hard to keep up to date. And at some point, I just thought, okay, I cannot like keep up with the pace and the opportunities that are out there. I cannot just like see, okay, how can I 3D render stuff? How can I code? How can I prototype? How can I wipe like design or create images with Midjourney and FreePic and Nano Banana and all these kind of things out there? Then we try to see, okay, what are the most promising assets that we need to optimize our workflow and our design process? And we are still in there, but we focus on what is really core to what we serve and what we do best. And now we build an AI tech stack around this, and a second layer that we use just to build AI features for our clients, because we do, 40% of our day-to-day work, we build like AI products, AI features, AI things. And therefore we use all kinds of models and capabilities out there that we need to test and be like up to date on how they work and what they can do. But for our agency, we have a core set. And what we notice is that the art of design could change. This will take a while, but we are used to build products like we build houses, right? With we build brick on brick on brick. And when you start to wipe code and to build the prototypes with Claude Code or other tools out there, I mean, it doesn't matter, Bolt, Replit, Lovable, I don't know, then you see that the art of creation changed. And it's not like building brick by brick. It's more like you have a, what do you call it, clump of clay, and the clay is spinning, and you start with the entire thing. And then while interacting with this and while prompting, you shape the final product. But this is still, it's like just spinning around, giving you like the feeling of operating on the open heart of the thing. And this turns this entire creation process upside down from my point of view. So this means you actually start from the end and move all the way to the beginning. And, I see crazy things happening there, and a lot of like new thinking on how an experience comes into place in the first place.
Yeah, so you deliver those coded prototypes to the client as outputs, which technically means that you're no longer in the non-implementation phase, right? Like it's already, you are delivering some sort of, coded experiences, or do you just keep it for your own kind of internal explorations? And then like, what does a deliverable look like when you approach this process, when you use that process?
Yeah. So sometimes we ship wipe coded prototypes, but currently it's not the default. So the default still is Figma, because everything within Figma can get processed by the organization. This means like the source of truth for design is still there, and then development can take it from there. And of course, they also use the AI tools, and we use the AI tools within Figma or within third-party applications or whatsoever. But normally, if we wipe code, we do it just for a chunk of our clients, and then we just ship like really prototypes, and the majority still gets Figma layouts and designs. And yeah.
Were there some interesting use cases that you've automated as far as your internal processes, where you leverage AI to make things faster, better?
Yeah.
What are some of those?
Yeah. So, for example, what is currently interesting is that you can do a lot of the building within Figma from a code first perspective. So what we see doing more and more is we build something like the final asset with Claude Code, and then we take the code and feed the code and the building into Figma. And because the code looks messy, and this is okay, it's just about the function and the semantics and the alignment between like code and Figma. And then we take this messy thing, bring it into Figma, then like design the stuff that we that we think looks good, and then like bring this back into code. What the biggest advantage is that we have a shared understanding between what we have in code and what we have in Figma, and it is unbelievable that 2026 have it. So if we look into design systems, they are not all like Radix or Tailwind or the big ones out there. Mostly they're like misaligned, not in sync. And this is something that is really interesting. Another thing that we try to do more and more and more is to accelerate and automate our processes. Like, for example, how do we present certain results? How do we spec results? How do we document them? How do we analyze interviews and synthesize insights? Like there are a lot of processes that can be automated, and that where we have redundant work that we can make much more lean and fast than it is done before today.
When you were mentioning about the discrepancy between Figma and code, were you saying that it is possible now to connect the gap between Figma and code, or that the gap is still there?
Yeah, it is possible.
Yeah. Do you use like Figma MCP or Figma Console MCP?
Yeah. Exactly. We currently work and explore like the MCP connection, and then we do most of the stuff either in the terminal or in Claude Code, and then we combine it with
Storybook.
Yeah, Storybook, not Block. This is our CMS. So happy to, by the way, do the new website without any CMS. I'm not sure if this will work out, but we will explore.
I think it will. I'm in the process of doing that, and just like go all code, and it's not out yet, but I think it should work. I mean, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, if we look on, you just mentioned, okay, isn't it like unsatisfying to see that what we envisioned to be great is not as great as soon as it gets shipped, right? And I think from a designer's point of view, I'm really optimistic currently, because we get a lot of empowerment to close the gap at least a bit. If we look on what we can imagine, what we want to build and what we actually build, then there's a huge gap. Here is where we want to be, and here is where we are able to go. And with the help of AI, we can hopefully just fill this gap. And then in the end, this would mean that we get a lot of better outcomes out there from a designer's perspective.
Yeah. Are there any things in the current state of AI that kind of are not there yet the way that you would love them to be there? Like, meaning, what are the top few things that you have that you wish there would be more progress on? Like, what are the next things that you're excited about working that's not working yet?
Yeah. Oh, I think collaborating on AI stuff is something that I'm really missing. I hope that we are able to get this soon. I'm not sure how this will work out, but collaboration is something that I'm missing in this process. You use an AI as a sparrings partner, as someone to create, but you do it in a one-on-one situation. And it's really hard to do it in a team, because I really love to have people moving around and work together on stuff. I love it if they do not sit in front of the computer, but instead in front of a whiteboard in one room. I mean, we are present physically here in one office and have people moving around and think together. And I would also love to have this with AI in a multi-party environment.
Are you talking about like the process of writing, of making code, or some other type of collaboration?
I mean, any type of cooperation. It could be like the art of creation. Like we could create, like for example, assets, images, videos. We could create like UIs. We could create code. We could create content. We could create, but also we could brainstorm together, or we could like make ideation sessions. We could like try to synthesize ideas, stuff, things, analytics, but not like from a one-to-one perspective, but rather from a team, multi-party perspective. But this is, I mean, if you, I had this situation, and this was so weird because this is also changing. I mean, we can come back to this, but I thought it is interesting to bring this up, because I remember I was sitting with my son at home. It was in the evening, and from time to time, he's just randomly asking questions to Perplexity, just to get some answers. And whenever I do not know, of course, there's an answer in the internet, in the AI world, right? And he was asking about like the longest car racers and what is faster, a racing car or rocket ship or whatsoever. And I was a bit of tired and was preparing already the bathroom to brush the teeth. And I hear him talking with the AI. And then I was calling him. I said, "Hey, Anton, let's go brush the teeth," right? And then he was not reacting, but Perplexity was. And Perplexity said something like, "You know what? How would it be if you first go and brush your teeth, and then I wait here for you, and if you come back, then we just keep on going, right?" And then there was this moment of silence, and he was laughing out loud, and I was like moving my head like from the bathroom into his shower room. I was like, "What the heck?" And he was like, "Just say it again." And AI was like, "First, go into the bathroom. I wait for you, and we can continue a conversation as soon as you're back." And we were just laughing out loud, and this was like, it was by accident, I guess, whatsoever.
Wow.
And I
So
never heard that this is possible.
you think it recognized that a different person, basically, that like it sort of heard you as you, not as him, and like it differentiated between the two people and like stepped in as the good
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But I have no clue why this happened. It was like, I guess it was a bug, but it was like
a good bug.
yeah, a good bug. It understood there's a relationship, there's a multi-party environment, there's a parental situation going on. It was acting as the good guy. Yeah.
Or maybe
crazy.
it just reacted to context. Like sometimes I'm building this app, and I'm using like voice input through just the regular browser microphone. And sometimes it doesn't work as precisely. And so like basically it's like whatever you put into LLM, it's going to give you something. So who knows? Like, I mean, it would be cool if it sort of actually started to recognize parents and started to like give more weight to yeah. Or maybe that opens like an interesting thing about like for kids using AI, how their parents can sort of add, I don't know, skills or instructions for how to behave with their kids. That can, I mean, probably coming soon. Yeah, that's an interesting theme.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this like behavior is what we have to design, like how the AI needs to behave in a situation and in a context. And we have, like, currently we have one-on-one really intimate situations that we design for, or that we use this for, right? And then sometimes too intimate. But it's on the other side, if we open this up and bring the AI functionality into the real world, like into the environment in which we are, then it needs to act different depending on who I talk to, where I am. So does it understand that I'm in a business context, that I'm now in a podcast, and it shouldn't behave like we are sitting in a tram or we're sitting at home brain dumping some stuff or whatsoever? And this is like, how do you design for an interface that is not meant to be operated by one person, but everywhere? This is
Mm.
and this is what I'm really looking forward to, also design it, with it, for it, but
Yeah.
to see capabilities getting stronger on this.
Yeah, I mean, as they say, context is everything, right? So it's like contextually aware for sure. Interesting. We were talking about something that so we talked about North Stars, and also we talked about developing AI features. And I'm curious, like if you help clients to develop features for AI, right, to be used with AI, how do you think about capabilities that exist today versus where they will be in a year or year and a half, right? Like going back to that timeline that whatever you're working on today is not going to be implemented tomorrow. It may only happen later on. So do you try to like think of things that may be possible later on in the timeline and like account for that? Or how do you approach that?
Yes, we do.
You
Currently,
do?
we have a lot of initiatives running that are dealing with AI products and features, different contexts. Some of them are getting developed currently, are in development. Some of them were already released, and some we foresee for the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, you really observe like what gets developed, like where are we going, what are the patterns, and then we foresee certain things that we say, okay, if this capability is there, then how can the experience look like, or how can the product like feel like? And on the other side, okay, what if not? What is the fallback scenario? And also, what do we have to make sure to get closer to this? Because we could also, like, companies also need to catch up and need to build for this. Like, products currently are not prepared for AI. What you see there is like a lot of products put an AI layer on top of it, right? They basically just add a large language model, a different interface to their product experience. And this comes with two downsides. The first is that you have a much more complex UX, because interacting with a large language model is not as efficient and as, qualitative
Mhm.
as it was before. So currently, a few years ago, we were all designing for the best case outcome that we could foresee. And then we thought, okay, how can we bring, this was basically how we started this conversation, how can we bring people from A to B, right? And then we made sure that we got the right input in place to give the best possible output, to help people to succeed and to make progress. But now we deal with a situation in which we just give an open input and say, hey, ask me anything, do anything with me. I'm here for you. And we leave it on the user to make the right prompt, the right decision, give the right insight to then get an outcome. And this is not the best from an experience point of view, really not the best. So this is what, when we think about what comes next from an UX perspective, then that we get a better grip on how to qualify inputs and how to guide people through the interaction with large language models.
Have you heard of A2UI? It's a framework, I think, developed by Google. And the idea is that you define different components, kind of like a design system. It's geared for then assembling those components in a context like of the conversation or interaction. So it's kind of like creating that bridge for some people refer to as like hyper personalized UI, where you're interacting with the system and it kind of feeds you these like customly modular things that it sort of spins up based on the context of your interaction, but you predefine the blocks. So that's kind of the framework that's supposed to solve it. Or yeah, probably there will be more like that. Have you thought about that kind of that aspect of like kind of hyper personalized UIs that sort of create themselves on the fly?
Yeah, like we refer to this as generative UI currently. So when we think about this, how can we build custom UIs, custom interactions that are just there to maybe make one decision or give one information. It's collecting a consent or like triggering a shopping moment, or like there are multiple possibilities on how you can consume better content better or make better decisions along the way as a user. And I think this is a really important way to go to. But also this means if we think a product from this perspective first, how would this behave, and how do you create an characteristic for this product? If the product is different for each and every one of us, depending on the prompt, then not only we always have to be the first to take action, but also we lose a bit of the experience. So like the control of it. This is interesting, like an interesting shift on how we create customer relationships, branded moments, branded interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting to observe this and to see this.
Yeah, I'm curious kind of how that like, because the idea of it sounds very cool.
Yeah.
How's it going to work in practice is interesting. It's like I'm trying to play with it a little bit, not through A2UI, but like just like, for example, there's an app we're building. It's for like women's health. And so there is a chat component. And let's say when the conversation goes to talk about menstrual cycle, there is like a little pop-up that is non-chat. It's kind of like traditional buttons that sort of where the user can enter, when it happened or the severity of it, things like that. And I can see the benefit into that because I'm curious, like, what's your take on the voice interaction? Because some people believe that voice is going to be like the dominant interaction pattern. Some have doubts about that. Like, where do you stand on the voice to voice specifically?
Yeah. I'm not on the one or the other side, to be honest. Just yesterday I had a conversation, and the other one was pretty sure that this is the future. And I think I can foresee this, but I'm not 100% sure. But the voice is a superior interaction with an open input or with the interaction of a large language model. I mean, it's so hard. It's so much friction to get to the point where you want to go. It takes forever. It makes your fingers hurt. It is really not pleasurable at all, right? So if we compare it to this, then I would say voice is superior, the superior interaction. Is this a way that we interact in the future with all the stuff that we need to do on a daily basis? I'm not sure. So currently, for example, I use Whisperflow a lot. And this tool where I can just dictate, whisper whatsoever. If I talk into it in English, it works good. In German, it's just a mess. So, but this one, of course, it helps me to accelerate my interaction, because if I do a deep dive session, an intense like working session with Claude, for example, it's a mess. It takes forever. It's so much friction. It slows me down. And there it is a relief. I foresee this. I see this coming. But from a day-to-day perspective, I'm not sure. Again, like open inputs are not like the best interaction pattern at all.
No, I'm with you. I'm not sure myself. I feel like the truth is somewhere in the middle, maybe some sort of hybrid. Like, for example, I've noticed that, and I'm curious if you have the same experience. Have you used voice mode, where you talk voice to voice all the time?
Yeah.
Right. So when it first came out, like maybe for, I don't know, 2 months or so, whatever time frame, I was like, wow, this is incredible. talking to it, I'm exchanging thoughts. And then, without even me realizing it, I caught myself that I stopped using voice to voice. And instead, I do a lot more just pressing the button to like I talk in voice, kind of like you would do in Whisperflow, but I get the
Exactly.
output in text. Like,
Exactly.
did it happen to you as well?
Yeah. Yeah. So at some point, I started to talk through posts for LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting on a bicycle, I'm dropping off my son, and then I'm on the way to the office. And in this time frame, I just brain dump all my things while riding into
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT back these days.
Yeah.
And I just asked them to write down whatever I'm saying now. This was my vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't enjoying the conversation actually. And now I do this much more with Whisperflow, and just talking out loud. But yeah, I see the exact same pattern because, but I'm not sure. Like, I mean, WhatsApp. There are people out there, and this is again, there are different people behaving in different ways, and also like based on how they grew up, the generational context, stuff like this. So, for example, I really hate voice messages. Like if someone
When
sends
other
me a
people, when now,
WhatsApp, yeah, oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh, it's so annoying. It takes forever to listen to this. I never have time to this. I see all these filler words and and then oh haha, look at this, what happened just next to me, but I wasn't there. It's so weird, and a lot of people enjoy this and they have really fun in this. But for me, it's more like someone is stealing my time, and I do not have access to the information that is really most important for me. And here it's similar. I do not really enjoy talking to an AI. For me, this is a tool. I want to work with this. For me, I do not enjoy this. It's not like
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel the same way you do about hearing other people voice messages. And I wonder if there is some like, but at the same time, I as a user sometimes would like to send one. So it's like there is a difference between like you sending one because it feels more convenient, as opposed to being on the receiving end, which is same in that example with voice mode versus just like transcription. I wonder if there is something about just the fact how LLMs respond today, because like what you mentioned, even in like human voice messages, filler words, blah, 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 unrelated. Like LLMs don't have filler words, but there is sometimes a lot of fluff that comes with it. So maybe in some like future iterations where it's, I don't know, more precise or more natural, like where you truly feel like you're getting faster value, maybe it could work. Also, actually, specifically with ChatGPT, what bugs me is when you start a voice mode, I don't think it then later converts to a regular chat that you can continue. Like, I think that there's like two separate trails.
not
So it's like,
anymore.
not anymore? Okay, good.
They combined it finally.
Yeah, because that was, I was like, okay, like that was just really inconvenient. Anyway, so I have a,
One more thing, one more take
yeah.
here, maybe, because when we talk about talking to someone and voice, I mean, the interaction with it will be getting much more natural, right? And like when someone stops talking, is responding, and all of this will like evolve rapidly. And what I see also as an interesting thing happening currently is that we see a lot of different strategies when it comes to how the voice and the AI should behave. Like, is there a personality, or are there multiple personalities out there? If you look in the Chinese market, there are a lot of like products out there that have like different characters you can choose from, you can customize, you can then build a relationship up to. And also X was releasing a couple of characters like you can talk to, and they have a behavior, they have certain character traits, stuff like this. And on the other side, I'm thinking, yeah, but wait a second, voice and the how the assistant is talking to you also becomes a branded moment, something that is really tying back to the core like principles of your brand. And it's also interesting to see, okay, how do these relationships evolve over time when the screen gets less and less important, and how you package interactions, but how you deliver them through voice and who is delivering them is getting more and more relevant, because people start to build a relationship with their voice, for example. That's crazy. So also interesting how products deal with this in the future.
Yeah, no, for sure. There are some cool products out there exploring voice, not just generation, but also sentiment analysis, kind of like figuring out what the person talking to a model is experiencing and adjusting, like cloning voices, creating voices. I think that voice is definitely going to be there for a lot of things. I also don't think that the traditional UI is disappearing, especially, and there is certain cases, I don't know, like controlling a nuclear plant, like I don't see that, happening through a voice interface, or like any sort of serious factory production or thing. I mean, who knows? Maybe I will be wrong, but at least not until the precision and accuracy and control is there.
Yeah, but if we would like work on something now, and we do not have a casual conversation here, yeah, late at night or early in the morning, so then we would behave different. We would use different tools. We would make notes. We would start to sketch something. We would start to refer back to visual asset that we created as an artifact that we need to process further. We behave different, and we use different tools and interfaces. And I see the same happening here. Like voice is serving a lot of interactions quite well that are really open-ended, explorative, but there are limitations. And we do not have all these AI pins and glasses in the future, and that's it. I think we just get more assets and more gadgets.
Yeah, I almost wonder that maybe for voice to be further integrated into more parts, products and interactions need to be like rethought from ground up. Like as opposed to like adding voice as an add-on to an existing system that wasn't designed to be like voice first, maybe those products just need to be like rethought completely to make it more effective. I created an experiment, and we have like a few minutes left, like a lightning round of questions. So I'm going to ask you a question, like a set of questions, and so it basically short responses. I mean, if you want to go deeper, that's fine too. So are you up for that?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Favorite tools to build presentation decks in?
Oh my gosh, this is so bad. I have none. I'd love a whiteboard and then just sketch while I'm talking.
So someone else is doing your decks?
No, it's like a live performance,
Okay.
No, really. I put a lot of like really ugly scribbles in Figma, because this is a place where we present then, yeah, but it's not good. And then I have Figma slides with my ugly sketches. But if I'm physically in the room, I love just to have a whiteboard and then sketch it out there.
Okay, awesome.
Without any slides.
That's nice. Yeah, I feel you, but a lot of people depend on slides for whatever reason. Ship fast or ship right?
Ship right.
Big vision or small iterations?
Big vision.
What's your favorite LLM?
Claude.
Remote or in person?
In person. Always.
What's a design trend you wish would just die already?
Liquid glass.
What's one red flag that tells you a project is going to fail?
I can come up with one. Honestly, no. Too many issues. Too many flags.
What are the top few?
If a team is already running and design just need to make sure that development keeps running, I mean, this is a big flag for me, I guess.
Got it. What's one question every team should ask before building anything?
How do you improve someone's life with what you build?
Excellent. What is one belief you've changed your mind on in the last few years?
I mean, really what return of investment means for someone who loves to create beautiful things. It's always like everything is just, depending on the context, worth something. And this is what changed my thinking about what I'm doing, what I'm buying, what I'm choosing, how I'm acting.
Okay, and the last one. If someone thinks of starting an agency today, what would be the first thing you advise them to do?
I think start with a client first. Like really go with a project into this adventure, I guess. Or maybe
Meaning finding the client? Or
I mean, when I started out, I wasn't starting from scratch, you know. I wasn't starting from without a client and just figuring out, okay, what to do. I would say, like, a lot of designers fall into this trap that they need to build a brand first, a website, a proper asset, a sales funnel, everything, a logo, a name, blah, 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 blah. Skip all of this and just start with a project. Get to work, make money first, and then build up on this. Yeah.
excellent advice. Without clients, there is no agency.
Yeah, there's no issue.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. It was fun. Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Arseni. It was a pleasure talking to you.